Hello, my name is Robert Southall-Edwards. I'm a researcher at the University of Essex, and I'd like to tell you about some work we've been conducting where we've gone into a community garden to look at how physically demanding some of the tasks that are regularly completed are. This project was funded by an ESRC Impact Accelerator Award given to the research team by the University of Essex. To complete this research, we've been working with Together We Grow, a community interest company who are located in Colchester in Essex. Together We Grow operates a community garden which is located on the edge of 𝐅𝐻𝐽𝑧 Country Park in Colchester. They are a not-for-profit social enterprise who aim to improve the lives of individuals by engaging them with nature, and in particular through growing with gardening. They have a regular community of volunteers who help to maintain the garden, and they provide a service to organisations within the local area, such as mental health hospitals, allowing their service users to attend the garden to provide benefits to their health and well-being. As I've already mentioned, the purpose of the research primarily was to assess how physically intense commonly gardening tasks are to complete. So we took some common gardening tasks that regularly occur throughout the year to determine how physically intense they were to complete. The tasks of watering, weeding, planting and composting all form a vital point in the growing cycle. Now, as can be seen in the picture, we had the gardeners wear a portable gas analyzer while completing these tasks. This allowed us to monitor how much oxygen they were using, and from this we can determine how much energy they needed to do that task and how intense it was. As well as looking at the oxygen consumption of the gardeners across the 4 tasks, we also had some other measures we took which allowed us to consider how intense some of the other activities that were regularly taking place at the garden were, and we were able to do this with a greater number of gardeners. These measures were heart rate, which was obtained using a common sports watch and a chest strap, like many people do to monitor their own exercise intensity, an accelerometer, which is worn on a belt and sits on the hip, that allows us to monitor movement and then estimate how hard someone is working, and then finally the gardeners simply rated how hard they thought an activity was after they'd completed it using the scale on the screen. So what did we find? How physically intense were these common gardening activities to complete? Here we have the metabolic intensity of the gardening activities. So this was how hard we found the gardeners to be working when we looked at how much oxygen they were using. So commonly we consider an activity to be moderate if it falls in this range between 3 to 6 metabolic equivalent or METs. And moderate activities are the activities that current physical activity guidelines in the UK recommend we should do for 150 minutes a week. Then above these moderate activities we have vigorous activities which otherwise were recommended to complete for 75 minutes a week. So what we found is all 4 of the tasks where we measured the oxygen consumption were around a moderate intensity. The composting was clearly harder than the other 3 activities and going up towards more of a vigorous intensity activity. And we can see when we look at how the intensity varied between gardeners across each of the activities that when individuals were composting, half of the gardeners were actually working at a vigorous level, whereas when we consider something such as the weeding, only half the gardeners were working at a moderate level, and therefore some of the gardeners were actually working too easily to be classified as an activity that would allow them to meet their weekly exercise targets. Here we have the heart rate of the gardeners during the 4 tasks, and generally this reflects what we observed in the previous slide with the metabolic intensity of the activities, and that is that the activities are falling just into that moderate level of intensity that we need to do to meet our weekly exercise goals, with composting being more demanding than the other tasks and requiring some more effort. Here we have the data from the accelerometers, so that was when we were tracking the amount of movement the gardeners did during each task and then estimated how intense the activity was from that. And on the right we have how the gardeners reported the activity, how hard they thought it was when they'd finished. Broadly speaking, what we see across both these measures is similar to what we saw across the metabolic and the heart rate data, which is the gardening activities are approaching that moderate level, with composting being more physically demanding than the other tasks. Based on what we saw across the previous oxygen use and heart rate, it also appears that when we assess the activities using the movement from the accelerometers, we may be underestimating how intense the activities are, especially when we're considering activities that don't require much movement of the body, such as when individuals are fairly static, weeding or picking. However, when we consider hedge work, an activity that requires the use of more of the body, then again this was being detected as a more intense activity. We also asked the gardeners how they felt after completing each of the common activities in the garden, and generally the gardeners reported a similar mood across all of the gardening activities. And what was quite interesting is it doesn't appear that doing the more physically demanding gardening tasks, the composting, the hedge work, would then result in the gardeners having reduced mood. So what does this mean? How do these common tasks that are regularly completed in a community garden fit into helping individuals meet those weekly exercise targets? So we've shown that many of the common activities conducted in a community garden are of a sufficient intensity that they can count towards an individual's current exercise goals. That is, where they need to be completing at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise each week. However, caution should be taken when only completing the activities which don't require as much movement, such as the weeding or the picking, as then the activities may not be sufficiently intense to ensure that they're working hard enough to meet their exercise targets. The range of activities on offer at the garden provide a platform to suit individual needs, with the ability for individuals to progress over time from the less physically demanding tasks as they build up to the more intense gardening activities. And as well as the physical intensity, which we focused on in this research, gardening may also provide other benefits, such as helping individuals maintain or enhance their strength and balance when completing tasks such as watering, requiring them to fill and carry 10-litre watering cans in each hand, or load and move a wheelbarrow full of compost, another important component that's recommended in the UK physical activity guidelines. And finally, we've shown that gardeners may be able to use simple self-report measures, such as reporting how hard a task is on a scale, to distinguish between easy and hard tasks around the garden. This could allow other organisations to assess their gardening activities and determine how hard their gardeners are working. We would love to hear your thoughts on the research that's been presented here today, and particularly whether the findings will inform your work, policy or practice, and any suggestions you may have for other research that would be useful to you or your organisation. If you'd like to provide feedback, please use the link below or scan the QR code. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and if you'd like any more information, please contact us using the details provided.